Hey guys, welcome to the second edition of Donny's Takes. It's your boy Donny Spellbreaker with the Spellbreakers podcast. I want to come out here, one of my many secret spots, and talk a little bit about manifestation. So this is going to be my first video segment on manifestation. So I'm going to call it Manifestation 101. And so a lot of you probably have an idea of, the book The Secret. Oprah Winfrey and all of these rich millionaires talking about, if you just think of, getting checks and millions of dollars, it just appears, it just comes to you. Well, sorry to say, that's not really how manifestation works. But, if you will, and you might be very relieved to know that indeed it is real. And I've experienced it many times in my life. It's undeniable for me, and so I think it opens up many different avenues of topics that we're going to cover here on the Donny's Takes. And so I'm going to start first with the basics. What is manifestation? Well, manifestation, I would define it as basically bringing your thoughts into the physical space. So your ideas, intentions, desires, your predominant thinking, bringing that into the physical world. In lucid dreaming, this would be a lot easier to do, right? For those of you who have experienced being conscious or aware in your dream, also known as lucid dreaming, we know that we can actually change the things around us pretty quick. We can fly on a dime. We can, get away from that monster. We can go wherever we want. Well, in the realm that we are now, it's a lot more dense. And so this process is a lot slower and harder to do. It reminds me a lot of the Bible, to be honest, when they talk about God basically through the spoken word bringing to life from void into form. That's, to me, what manifestation is. Bringing from void, from thought into the space that we inhabit. I would also love to know your guys' definition as well. So please put that in the comments below. But why does it work? I think this is the most powerful and interesting question, and one that we're going to explore a lot on the Spellbreakers podcast moving forward. But why does it work? So people posing many different views of reality, right? One of which is that, this is simply a hologram or a soul trap. So, the reason why manifestation would work is because you're basically in like a matrix-like scenario, in a simulation where, your thoughts kind of run the simulation, right? If you watch Rick and Morty, there's a few episodes where they get trapped in simulations, right? A lot of people are proposing this idea, especially the materialists, and Elon Musk and all these billionaires are secretly actually funding ways to try to escape the simulation. But so this is one potential reason. Okay. Another is, that essentially, this is a hologram or a shared dream, right? That we are dreaming together, this kind of collective conscious reality. If you look into the studies around non-local consciousness, it kind of proposes this idea that, the physical world that we see is actually secondary to consciousness. It would not exist independent of consciousness. And that consciousness is fundamental to the nature of reality. And I lean more and more towards this based off the evidence, right? And when we look into the observer effect and other studies on the nature of reality and the fact that consciousness exists outside of the body, this for me is very plausible in terms of how reality works. But another, which for me, I believe is true, that's in the Christian Bible, is this idea that God dwells within us. And so for me, I believe that this is true. I do believe that we are creations of God. And we are connected to God. Maybe ultimately we are God, and that this is the illusion of separation. I don't want to get too woo-woo here. We're already talking manifestation, so I don't want to get, too new agey. Again, I don't like the new age, but manifestation is been repeated in my life so many times that I would be remiss if I didn't talk about it as a fact or reality. Okay, so for me, my personal belief is that God dwells within us. This could be in our central crown chakra or heart chakra, whatever, but this gives us the powers of co-creation. Okay, so we are not omnipotent gods. A lot of New Agers think that we can become gods, maybe in another type of reality or consciousness, but in our current form, I've never seen a god. Okay, most people who believe they are gods are totally insane, and I think you should stay away from that type of thinking personally. But I do believe we have the creative power imbibed within us because of God. And so God has given us consciousness and imagination. And through that, it's enabled us to be able to bring our thoughts into reality. The same way that God in the Bible, through the word, right? Spelling, okay? Through spell, or the word, brings into reality. So I believe we all have this power, and it's innate. It's part of why and how we're here, right? So we could dig into that for forever, and we will in future Donny's takes. But for now, let's just leave it at that. God exists. Sorry, atheists. Okay, there is a creator. It dwells within us. We are connected to it in a way I don't fully understand, but I want to understand. And that allows us to bring our thoughts into reality. Okay, so that's basically why it works. Or yeah, okay. And so moving on. When does it work? Now this is a very interesting question. And long story short, I would say it works all of the time. It's constantly working whether we realize it or not. And it is neutral. So what do I mean by this? Our dominant thoughts, okay, will set our reality. It's as simple as that. Now, let's say you don't believe, let's say it's just for a second, you think all of this is woo-woo. You say, whatever, Donny, I'm an atheist, I'm agnostic, I'm a materialist. I don't really care about all of that woo-woo, Okay, fine. But let's just keep it real here, okay? From a purely materialistic perspective, let's call that the level 1 onion, okay? You cannot achieve anything that you do not think you can achieve. And that might sound very simple, but that applies to all areas of life. So what do I mean by that? I mean, let's say in terms of fitness, right? You will not achieve the level of fitness or health that you don't believe that you can achieve, okay? This could also be, you might not think you're worthy, okay? You might not think you're worthy of being healthy or being happy. You might not be able to see yourself as ever being able to be wealthy or out of debt, or in a relationship that isn't abusive, or in a job that you don't hate, right? You'll never get out of any of those situations if you can't first see yourself in a better situation, okay? That makes sense whether you believe in all of this woo-woo, reality is a shared dream or not. That's just a fact, okay? That's just a part of reality, okay? So for any personal improvement that you're doing in your life, you need to first see yourself being able to do that, right? This is used, visualization is used in professional sports, in all of the top tier performance. They literally have guys that just help these pro athletes or elite, competitors visualize, right? Either winning or competing or doing the task that they're set out to do. This is just a fact, okay? So level 1 layer of the onion, you need to be able to see what you can do and believe that you're able to achieve it. That's just the way it is, okay? Now, my experience in manifestation is that it's a double-edged sword, and it's literally totally neutral, right? So this is part of the reason why I don't, even though I believe in a lot of the Christian principles, I believe in largely living a Christian type life in terms of ethic and morality, I don't always believe that there is a personal God that is always there with us. And although I feel very blessed and I practice gratitude every day, I don't think that it's true because of a lot of the suffering that happens in the world. Now, I remain open to this, okay? I haven't judged it. But my experience with manifestation is that it happens all the time, and it's neutral in that it happens for the worse and for the better equally. Now, why does it happen for the worse and why does it happen for the better? Well, that would come down to what I would call your vibrational state. And now we're getting a little bit woo-woo, but I don't really care at this point because what? We're talking about manifestation anyway, all right? But I care less about somebody's religious upbringings or what they believe or what they think they know or what they say. For me, it's vibe, okay? And what do I mean by vibe? You can call it vibration, you could call it level of consciousness, okay? And there's this guy, Hawkins. He wrote this book on different levels of consciousness. I'm going to do a whole review on this book, but essentially he talks about the different levels of consciousness in spirituality. And most people are sub 800. And so what does that mean? It means people are trapped in like fear, people are trapped in worry, and people are just generally in an egoic, fear-based state, okay? And so that will, when people say, oh, you can't manifest in a low vibrational state, I think that's actually incorrect in that you are bringing into reality your dominant emotional state, thoughts, and focus at all times, okay? So for me, I notice this all the time. For example, if I start to feel upset and I don't correct my emotional state, okay, if I start to feel angry or a victim mentality is pretty low, okay, and then yeah, you get into actual anger, resentment, pity, victim consciousness. We all do this to some extent. I don't want to pretend like, I'm perfect. I'm not. But we get into these little cycles, okay? You stay in that cycle long enough, pay attention, you'll start to notice that shit just starts to derail for you. All of a sudden that, potential new house, or apartment you were looking at falls through, your friend all of a sudden is upset, or something happens, or something breaks, or, we've all had this almost perfect storm of like when it rains, it pours, right? One thing happens and then another, and then another, and then another. My life is often like this. It's like a flood or tsunami, like once or twice a year, and that actually becomes a catalyst for growth and improvement if I fully embrace it and fully submit to it. If I resist it, start to get pissed, everything falls apart. Okay, so just keeping it real here, right? Our dominant thoughts and vibrations impact the external world. Now, if you don't believe this, start keeping a mood journal every day. And start just logging your mood and logging what happens to you in a day. And you will see a correlation. It is totally insane. I have done this. It's crazy, right? You'll start to see the fact that you're, with a little bit of a delay, right? Your dominant thoughts or underlying emotional state will bring forth a certain result that is repeatable again and again and again. Now, this is not to say that all horrible things that happen to people are because they deserve it or because they're low vibe. We're not perfect creators, okay? So I want to be very clear on that. We can't just like all be levitating around and be in a total euphoria, right? But we also aren't in a full hell realm either. So for me personally, I believe we're somewhere in the middle of like powerful creators and then at the behest of parasites that are running some type of plantation. Okay, so on the flip side, I noticed the same thing. If you can keep your vibes high, okay, what does this mean? A predominantly positive mental state. And I'm not talking like new agey, like, up in the air, weird. I'm talking like grounded contentment and positivity. It doesn't have to be like super bubbly, off the walls with excitement and euphoria. I'm just talking general contentment, okay, to start. Like you feel everything's fine, that in this moment, that there's nothing more that, I need, right? This feeling of discontent that we are programmed to have, largely because of our current system, is actually a huge deterrent to actually bring things into fruition, right? So, yeah, that's basically on terms of, who can and when does it happen. It's happening constantly, and it's based off your emotional state. Which leads us to the next point, that the most important way to learn manifestation and to practice this and to improve is first to improve our inner state, because it's all happening in our mind, in our consciousness. And so that really is the ticket. That's the difference between being a very powerful manifester, having a very good life, and having a horrible hell-like experience. And so, we hear a lot of people, especially those who talk about soul trap, describing this world as an almost prison-like hell. Well, they're not wrong. You can create hell on earth. There is hell on earth. I've been to hell on earth. I have seen dark, horrible things in this world that I never want to see again. My life was almost a hell on earth. And I practiced manifestation, and I got to where I am today. And I don't want to pretend like I'm, a shining example of the peak of humanity, but I can tell you, I live a very beautiful and blessed life where I actually now rarely get angry. Most of my life is very, very good. And in the past, it was very, very bad. And the things that changed were, I believed in manifestation. I practiced it. It worked. And also, I changed my consciousness. So 101, if you're trying to actually manifest, trauma. If you have emotional trauma and unresolved trauma, it doesn't work. Okay. I mean, it does in the sense that you will attract negative things if you're in a perpetual state of stewing and spiraling. But if you're starting to become a higher vibe, right? Like higher, better emotional states, let's say like 700-800 on the Hawkins scale, trauma will just nip it in the bud, and it'll kind of cancel it out, right? So you'll start to bring things from the ether into creation. You start to feel it. Eventually, when it's coming to you. Okay, this is going to be in future episodes, but and then all of a sudden, trauma kicks in, right? It'll be like a trigger, right? Maybe something your spouse said that brought up when you're 10 years old, that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, you peak into like a pretty low vibe state, and even if within like a day or two you get back, you've kind of canceled that order. Think of like manifestation as throwing out orders and bringing them back, right? And so having trauma, even if you're a higher vibe person, will cancel it all the time. So that's like 101 stuff. You have to deal with that. And that's why I do have the sponsor, Eric Mace at macelifecatalyst.com, link below. It's because I actually used him. And even though I was higher vibe than most people in terms of like my, I don't know, if I were to take a Hawkins score, I did have a lot of traumas that would kick in and it would totally ruin it. So my life just was like this bipolar roller coaster where it was like, I start to manifest, everything's amazing, and then I get triggered and I'm really upset and like, I'm like black pill doom pilled, and then then it would cancel everything out. So my life wasn't really getting worse, but it was like starting to get better, just about to get better, and then boom. Right? And now I've come past a corner, whereas things are now, there's a flow where things are just coming to me more and more. I don't want to pretend I'm some elite master at this, okay? But I can just tell you it's just happening. Things are coming to me with ease. I'm still taking actions to bring them into fruition, but they're coming with ease. It seems to be like a lack of, I don't have to put force into things, and they're coming easier and just more and more abundance all the time. It's incredible, right? That's why I want to talk about this, because I honestly think manifestation, the heart of it answers or brings up many questions around who we are, what the world is, what's the nature of reality, what is our power, and what can we do? So that's why I think it's very important. I don't want to sell you on some, idea that you can instantly become a billionaire. And the problem is, as well, is I think we have two selves. We have like our spiritual higher self, okay, our true level of consciousness, and we have the ego, okay? And I don't want to do a whole thing on the ego now. I'm going to do another video later, but essentially it's our false self, right? Who we tell ourselves we're a human, we are our jobs, we are this, we are, in debt. I am in debt, right? I don't hold debt. I am in debt, right? I am unemployed, right? The difference between that and I'm currently experiencing unemployment, it's actually huge in the ego. So ego as well is something we need to break through, right? This idea of this false limited self, right? Because again, we cannot manifest anything that we do not think we can do. And the ego is actually a amalgamation of stories of who we are that other people have told us that we have absorbed and identify with emotionally. Okay, so for example, like people, like as a kid, I thought I was stupid. Okay, and I internalized this because people used to call me stupid. And it was only when I got tested that people actually had to tell me, like, hey, you're smart. And I didn't even believe it until I started to get success in academia. And, that's just something I had to deal with. And then when I accepted, hey, I have intelligence, it was fine. Okay, but before that, it would bring all of these blockages and problems into my life because I couldn't see opportunities that other people could see because I thought, I wasn't smart enough to do it, right? And so anyways, bit of a rant there. But long story short, we have to focus on our emotional state. So what can we do? Well, for me, I love lifting weights and lifting heavy. For me, that's my yoga, that's my therapy. But, do yoga, do body work. And I'm pretty noob in that department, to be honest, but I know it's very important. So push your body, walk, jog, do yoga, morning meditation, or prayer. If you're a devout Christian, pray, okay? But I think there's a different way to pray than what most Christians are used to, and we'll get into that. But have daily spiritual practices that boost your consciousness. So what I do is first thing in the morning, I do like a few minutes of meditation and breath work, like 2 minutes to start, 2 minutes minimum. And if I'm busy, at least I did 2 minutes. And then I do a visualization journal where it's like 4 or 5 sentences on what I think the day will look like. And then at the end of the day, I do gratitude. It's like 4 or 5 sentences on what I'm thankful for. And, why does this work and why is it a good thing? Is because gratitude is one of the ways we can raise our vibration the fastest. In fact, I think what people describe as Christ consciousness or enlightenment is actually in a state of enhanced perpetual gratitude. And I've experienced these states, just dipped my toe in, where like for 3 weeks I was totally I would say it's a mild state of enlightenment where I literally had zero worries. Time changed. I just felt perpetually content and blessed. And it was a very beautiful experience. I think it's just literally the tip of the iceberg of what people describe as enlightenment and such. So we want to be working towards these states every day, right? And we want to do it in a grounded way as well, because the New Age just tells you, like, just focus. Like, say, what is the mantras where they say the same thing for minutes and minutes and minutes? That's kind of bullshit, because literally if you don't believe it, you can't achieve it. Right? So you want to start slow and you want to be very honest with yourself. And you want to go a day at a time and have a daily practice. And start where you're at, okay? If you're depressed all the time, you need to work on that, okay? If you're angry all the time, you need to work on that, okay? And even getting a little bit better every day, like 5% better, 10% better, is a huge win that will impact your life, okay? So I don't want to describe this as just like a one and done, you just write it down and put it on your pillow and it happens. This is a process, but it's a process that I think is intricately connected with building your spiritual life, okay? And a lot of people don't pitch manifestation that way. They pitch it as like, you can have anything you want, you just have to wish for it. And it keeps people in this cycle of looking outside of themselves. So I don't recommend that, okay? I recommend just every day committing to yourself, okay? Healing your traumas first, benefiting your life, and getting your baseline emotional state higher. That's like phase 1, okay? So phase 1, whether that takes you weeks, months, a year, don't worry, okay? Just go through the motions to the point when you find that most of your life, okay, the majority of your day, you're pretty content. And you're not getting heavy downward spikes, okay? Those are maybe the biggest problem or impediment to manifestation. Like, if you're getting intense rage and anger and you still have unresolved trauma, you stop everything you're doing, work on that, okay? Then next, or you could do this at the same time, start to, as I said earlier, become aware of the correlation between your dominant mental state, your dominant thoughts, and your life and the happenings of your life, right? Even have a journal where every day you just write down, I've mostly felt this today, and be honest. Always be honest with yourself. Like, always, okay? That's like super cool. And then track what happened to you in a day, and look over the period of like 3 months, and you'll see it. You'll see exactly, what's going on here. And for me, the more you see it and the more you see manifestation in action, it gets very exciting. And so the final thing I would say, let's call that step 1. Okay, so we're working on our traumas. We have a daily spiritual exercise, whatever that is. If we're Christians and we're praying diligently to Jesus Christ, okay, that's fine. Okay, that's perfect. We're taking care of ourselves. We're eating good, right? That's great. And then we're becoming more aware of the interplay between our lives and our conscious thinking. And then from there, we want to start thinking about, what do we want for our life? Okay. And so I'm going to leave it there for today. I hope everybody enjoyed. This will be Manifestation 101. Thank you.